We'll see what happens. I mean, certainly I'll see what happens. But when they have no collusion and nobody's found any collusion at any level, it seems unlikely that you'd even have an interview.
President Trump making headlines in the Russia investigation this past week during a joint news conference with the Prime Minister of Norway. The president backtracking on whether he will have a face-to-face interview with Special Counsel Robert Mueller, saying it's unlikely because there is no evidence of collusion to begin with. However, a former Justice Department official in the Bush administration telling Fox News the president would be doing himself a world of good by agreeing to an interview.
If the president comes in, he tells the truth to Mueller that there was no collusion, he can then turn around and say to the American people, I answered the questions, I deny that there was any collusion, let's bring this investigation to the end. If he refuses to talk, I suspect that is going to string this out, and as I said, I think a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, are going to draw the conclusion that there is something to hide here.
Let's bring in our legal panel, Robert Schalk and David Bruno. Both are defense attorneys and former prosecutors. Good to have both of you here with me on set, guys. So, David, since you're sitting here next to me, in terms of self-protection, are there legal reasons why the president shouldn't speak to the special counsel, that he should or should not? And also, are there any legal protections that give him cover?
Yeah, well, the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution protects him from speaking, and I disagree with Mr.
Why?
Dupree.
Just tell me why.
Well, because he's a target of this investigation. There's no mistake about that. I mean, there could be a number of criminal matters that the special counsel is looking into with this president. So because of that, because he's a target, he has the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. And the translation as to what he just said is, we'll see. His attorneys are telling him about this right and that he should be invoking, in my opinion.
Robert?
Well, a lot has changed since June of 2017 when the president said, I'll speak to Mr. Mueller, right? What has changed? Michael Flynn got indicted and is now cooperating. And President Trump has no idea what his testimony, what his statements to the federal government are. And he will not know the answers to any of those questions prior to going and being interviewed by anybody with regards to this investigation. His lawyer's going to tell him, we don't know the answers to all the questions they're going to ask. And we don't know what Flynn's answers are. So you can go in there and possibly incriminate yourself and open yourself up to either a perjury charge if you're called before a grand jury, or lying to a federal investigator, amongst other things. And we all know, as it was stated, that he should go in and talk about collusion. Everyone's talking about collusion, but we know that this investigation is going more into other ancillary aspects, not just collusion with regards to the investigation, business dealings, financial crimes. So he could be opening himself to a world of hurt here if he isn't smart.
What about... Go ahead.
Well, all you have to do is look at the Manafort and Gates indictment from the special counsel, and that had nothing to do with collusion. That is about money laundering and historic in the past. So that's where Trump has to be careful. It's not just about whether or not you colluded. That's not just going to be the question if he provides an interview. It's going to go more into history, financials, money, tax returns. Who knows? And that's the point that Robert's making, and I agree. You just don't know what special counsel is going to be asking about.
So what about, Bob, if the president submits answers in writing?
Well, see, the question is going to be whether or not they'll accept it. Okay, because if I was the investigator, I would not, because it's going to allow his lawyers to draft the answers for him. What's going to happen is they're going to want to meet face to face, because what happens is you can prep your client as long and as hard as you think, and you can give him what you anticipate the questions being. But once they get into that room and the lights are on and you don't have the opportunity to whisper in your client's ear, more or less what we talked about, remember this, and he potentially goes off the cuff. President Trump has been deposed numerous times with regards to his business dealings, and there have been findings in the past. There have been reports where testimony hasn't lined up with what his statements are. So you can prep your witness all you want, you can prep your client all you want, but once they get in that room, you don't know what's going to happen.
But wouldn't the president want to speak with the special counsel in an effort to put an end to the Russia investigation, to answer the questions, expedite the end, get it off the books? Because the president himself says this Russia investigation makes the U.S. look very bad.
Yeah, sure, he wants to. And certainly when you talk about public perception, he's going to want to. But that's a very different issue as to whether or not something's going to be used against you in the court of law. One additional point I'd like to make, not only could they ask for limiting answers, the scope, or written answers, they could also try to get what's called a proffer, a use immunity or a queen for a day. What that means, and it's common in the federal practice, is you go and give an interview, but it's protected. Nothing you actually say could be used against you. And that would be something I'd be talking to President Trump about and trying to get for the
Bob, they could talk to the president about that, but then the president would not want to inadvertently incriminate his son-in-law or anyone very dear to him.
Because what David said is absolutely correct. It could protect President Trump, but it doesn't protect other people. And when they specifically bring you in for what's known as a queen for a day and they allow you to speak and promise that they won't use that statement against you, they also tell you it doesn't stop us from taking the answers from the questions we gave to you and going and doing further investigation that could incriminate you and other people.
So what happens to the Mueller investigation without any interaction with the president in terms of in writing or a interview in person?
Well, they are going to be relying on witnesses and cooperating witnesses. I mean, Michael Flynn has pled guilty and has agreed to cooperate. George Papadopoulos is another one that is likely cooperating. And then let's see what happens to Manafort and Gates and whether, if they're convicted, they could be also witnesses to be used by Mueller. So notwithstanding the fact if Trump actually talks, he's going to have other witnesses to potentially put a case together.
And Bob, I'll give you the final word, but here's a question, too. So now you have Steve Bannon going to be going before Congress. Might he be called by Mueller?
Yeah, total wild card, because now there's backbiting and name calling and tweeting back and forth with regards to whether was he a loose cannon, is he telling the truth, is he now just upset because his ego got harmed because he got fired. We don't know what he's going to say. Complete wild card. He's going to cooperate. And again, another thing that is out of the control of the president this time is that now Mr. Bannon has the opportunity to come in and give more information that we potentially don't know about.
Really final answer. Question. What happens to the Mueller investigation without the president's involvement?
They're going to have to make a decision whether or not they could prove crimes against the president or anybody else. If they can, they'll be indicted. If not, they will just proceed against Manafort and Gates.
Just drags out longer than it already has.
David, Bruno, Bob Schalk, thanks to both of you.
Thanks, Arthel.
And we were watching football in the break. It was fun hanging out with these guys.
Okay,
thank you.